Hey everybody, Bryan back here again for another walk and talk on this very, very hot Thursday, right around noon. High noon. It's only going to get hotter today. We have a heat advisory for a while. If you notice, if you've been keeping up with these videos, I'm back to a familiar place I was at before, Eagle Marsh. Last time I had started over here. I went all the way around the wetlands to kind of arrive back at where I'm at now. This time, I'm going to take a slightly different path. It's going to be going kind of in reverse, but I'll be treading over some familiar territory just in a different direction. So today's... I'm going to pause here for a second. Okay. So today's walk and talk is inspired by something I've brought up a few times in the past. This entire video series was inspired by the time I spent with one particular student this past season, who, for lack of a better word or term, phrase, whatever you'd like to call it, changed my life. It gave me a new goal for my future, and I really appreciate that. Something I never really explained to her, because I didn't think she could really understand it. So I'm going to dedicate this video to her and the time we spent this past season, which was really, really just awesome, incredible. Now, I could have done this video from the very beginning. It would have made sense. But I couldn't quite formulate how to explain certain things. And I think after doing a few of these videos, I think I've gotten my explanatory power under control and gotten a few other subjects out of the way first, kind of prime me for today. As for choosing now, that's a little different. I was inspired by a clip of The Office. You know, the sitcom that was pretty darn popular about 10 plus years ago. Transplanted from the UK's version, which I also loved. There's a clip between Aaron and Michael. I won't get into their backstories for the sake of length this video, but Aaron's a lovable, friendly, feather-brained sort of young worker who appeared in the office to take over the receptionist role from Pam. Michael, of course, is the awkward, socially unaware boss. But Aaron really looks up to Michael. And it's revealed that she is a foster kid and never really had a good relationship with her father. So when she was asking him how he thought of the relationship she was having with another person in the office, and she was growing a romantic relationship with this person, he responds with, "Well, why do you care what we think?" And she goes, "Well, it's not that I care what everyone thinks, I care what you think." And again, unaware, Michael responds hastily, "Well, why does it matter? I'm not your father." And that little comment changed her look, made her kind of sad. He realized that. It was one of those rare moments when he finally became aware of the social cues, and he went into action. And instead of delving deeply into those pains, he said instead, "You know, I want you to go to your room, young lady." She goes, "You can't make me." "Yes, I can. I'm your father." "You can't." They kind of play pretend in this little scenario, and it told them both, "Look, I get you. I understand you. You're making sense to me and why you do things." And the scene ended. And it got me thinking about school. Because if you think about it, that's really what we as school staff irrespective of your level of achievement and career, do. We connect with these kids, we make sense of their lives, and we try to fit within them, within the boundaries that we set for ourselves and the professional ones as well. And it can be hard because you want to be able to do more for those that you care about. And if you work in schools, obviously you care about the kids, but there are certain relationships that you build that kind of go beyond that. And today's talk is about that. There's a student I've brought up before, and as I said, has inspired today's talk. And I don't recall if I have given her like an anonymous name. So if I have, I apologize, because for today I've chosen Violet as the name. So this particular school season from 25-26, I went into it pretty pessimistic. The prior year was an absolute chaotic mess. I went into that in other videos, so if you watch those, you will know what I'm talking about. But quickly, to my surprise, given that we had a brand new 5th grade team, a new system for kind of dividing up the 5th grade student body into different classes, and the kind of the system for how they would travel throughout their day, I thought it was a really good switch that benefited everybody. I was placed with the lowest tiered group, and within that group was Violet, a student I had never met before, but had spent her entire school career up to that point at this school. But I never ran across her, never interacted before. So in spending time getting to know the kids I was working with, I noticed that she was very easy to work with, very as if I had known her a long time, and just had that sort of vibe. And I think she understood, she kind of felt or understood that too. That it just seemed pretty open and free and comfortable. I'd work with her on the math and language arts and things like that, and she took to what I was saying really easily. No friction, no stress. She'd raise her hand when necessary, explain what she was feeling in the moment, and I'd do my best to help her through those problems. And it just worked. We clicked right away. Chemistry was good, and I think she liked that sort of attention I was giving, as did the other students too. I think the group I was in was a really good group overall, and as one of the teachers put it, I was kind of the glue for the group, not a leader as much as I was a kind of a centralized gravitational pull, I guess. So we got off on the right foot. It was very nice. Helped justify what was feeling to be a positive sort of experience for the year. Well, the first checkpoint came when we had a field trip to the zoo. I was a chaperone. There were other adults there, some parents, some other staff members, and this was meant for the 5th graders. We're going to start our year off, get to know what we need to do, and then head out to the zoo for some fun. And it was great because I had 3 kids with me. One of them just happened to be Violet. And I didn't ask for her. She was just kind of chosen to be in my group. How and why, I don't know. But when the social studies teacher called me over to show me the split ups, where the kids were going and with whom, I noticed Violet's name under mine. I said, "Oh, that's a good choice. I'm glad you put her with me, because we really get along." And this is within just a handful of weeks, 4 to 5, I believe. of the beginning of the year. And he gave me 2 other students to walk with us, and they're also great kids. We had a good time there. I took a bunch of pictures, sent them to all 3 kids so they would have a memory of their time together. It was just a really good day, and to be honest, I wouldn't expect any less from them. So Violet and I passed our first checkpoint. Yep, we had a good time, a lot of laughs. Time continued. School year goes on. Working together more, saying hi in the hallway, just general stuff. In fact, it was really good for the entire group. Didn't have any problems whatsoever. Recess was interesting. I'd be out there kind of observing everyone, wandering around while the other teachers sort of planted themselves in their familiar spots. I never liked doing that. I felt a compromise was needed on recess. Don't just stand in one spot, move around. I'm not getting anybody's business, but I'm a consistent presence, more or less. Well, as I would go around, some kids would come up, say hi, want to play, or throw the ball, or challenge me to basketball or something. I said, well, I can do that a little bit, but I still need to be able to monitor. No big problem. And then I would see Violet from time to time. She'd come over and say hi, show me what she's doing, and kind of tell me a few oddball things about what she likes and everything. And I found out that she's really big into K-pop. And I already knew because her manner of dress was that of a young girl trying to figure out who she is. Baggy clothes, big boots, hoodies when it's warm out, trying to keep her hood up, obviously as a way to shelter herself from the stresses of school. It's one of her bits of clothing featured a particular group within that genre of music that I was familiar with because of my enjoyment of music in general, and I'm an audiophile. Got a lot of rather useless information about music going back all the way to the 60s. And I try to keep up on current genres so that I'm not ignorant to what the kids are listening to. So I know a lot about K-pop, all the famous groups of the past 15 years. And that's with help from my wife, who was a big fan of BTS. And that might come up here as a discussion later on. But I was starting to get to know her a little more on a personal level, like what drives her, what motivates her. And before long, I figured out that she has an aspiration to be a pop star within K-pop. So that's kind of a dream of hers. She prepared by getting into choir and not really cheer, but just the singing aspect of it, being part of a group. So that was kind of cool. And when she would reveal those things to me, I'd be very supportive and encourage her to follow those dreams to the best of her ability without letting her feet escape the ground. Essentially, follow your dreams, but be realistic. Time went on. We'd work together more. She'd go to me as her number one source of assistance and help. Not completely avoid the teachers, but because I was becoming a trusted adult, I was her first go-to. And it really was that for the other students too, because that's just the way I am. I don't like taking a passive role in the classroom. I know there are times when I have to, but usually I'm wandering the room, asking how you doing, does this make sense to you, that sort of thing. Another checkpoint came for another field trip, this time to Purdue Fort Wayne, which is a local university. Used to be IPFW, Indiana Purdue Fort Wayne. Indiana University had pulled out, leaving Purdue to kind of take the reins for a local college, university, all on their own. And I talked about that in one of the other videos because I did a walk through there. Feel free to check that out. It's a lovely place. But we went there to see the Philharmonic. And I do like the Philharmonic. I think they do a wonderful job every single time I see them. But this was a unique field trip in that... I'm going to pause here for a second. I've never gone that way. I don't know what's over there. This wasn't just for our school. This is for all the schools in the area. And I think there were, well, probably between 10, 15 different schools that signed up for it. So we were there in a packed house. I sat in the back of our group, and Violet was sitting in the front row, like right up against the speaker, and I was a little concerned because that's pretty loud, but she was okay, because afterwards, by the way, the performance was very moving, and I thought they did a wonderful job. I had gotten a little misty-eyed at some of the pieces they were performing, because they're doing it for the kids. I just think that's it's a noble thing. But let's see here for a second. The performance had ended, and I got up because we had some time to waste because the buses for the other schools were ahead of ours. So we couldn't leave right away, so we had to wait. So I walked to the front of the group, and I saw, everyone who was in the front row, and kind of glancing to see if they're messing with their ears at all because it was loud up there, and they weren't, and they were having a good time. And of course Violet's up there, and I said, "Hey, how'd you like it?" And she goes, "Oh, that was really good." I said, "Glad you liked it. Glad you liked it." And I started walking towards the end of the row, and she stops me and says, "Hey, Mr. Bryan." I go, "Yeah." She asks me, "Would you sit with me on the bus on the way back to school?" And I put a smile on my face. I said, "Absolutely. I like that." And she smiled in return. So I hung around up there for a while, and I went back to my seat afterward. We got ready to leave, got on the bus, and I'm with her, and we sat there, and for 15 minutes, the time it took to get from that bus back to school, I had some of the most fun that I've ever had in a school setting. She was just giddy, laughing, joking around, looking out the window, saying ridiculous things, which I just loved. And I mean, that is perfect chemistry right there. We understood each other's humor and enjoyed just sharing a moment together. I think she really appreciated the attention I was giving her. I got into that pseudo dad role with the joking and being goofy and things like that. And it translated well, let's put it that way. A lot of laughs, a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that time. And it seemed like she did too. And I truly believe that was the case. Yet another checkpoint came and went, passed with flying colors. We were definitely beginning a strong relationship, a good, respectful, professional, school-based relationship based on camaraderie, friendship, and admiration. Our time continuing to work together, continuing to, say hi in the hallway when we pass, checking in on her at lunch, being at recess, having her come over to show me she can do a cartwheel, things like that. she became a part of my daily routine, where if she wasn't there, my day was different. It just didn't feel the same. There were times when she would not show up. Times of sickness where she would have to leave, and just, those regular school time maladies. And even though I enjoyed the group I was in, the fifth graders were incredible, and I will take that and etch it into stone if I need to get that point across. But it was a good group, and I enjoyed my time with them. But when she's not there, it just feels different. It's a different mode, I guess. Before long, recesses would start to change a bit, where I would notice her coming over a little more often. Here's one of our signs welcoming people to our city. I'm kind of on the fringe, southwestern fringe. There's a highway behind me, hence all the traveling and the traffic over there. There's a hospital over there. This path, by the way, crosses over this thoroughfare into the hospital area, and the trail goes around close to where I was when I went to the Jorgensen Y in a Boyd. This is more or less a Boyd over here. I'm not going to be going that way. The heat is starting to compound me a bit. I can tell I'm getting a little sticky. So I'm going to go back this way. Now I want to check out that road. I've never been down there. I want to see what's over there. But recesses started to change. I would notice her a little more often. She'd be a little more talkative. And I started to notice beyond that it seemed purposeful. Like she intended to do that. And I found that, delightful. Because I can be a bit enigmatic, where certain folks may not quite understand me, so they keep their distance. This is mostly with adults, because the things I say, the things I partake in, the way I formulate opinions and express myself. But with her, it seemed to be the opposite. Like it was fulfilling something that was missing. So she would find that missing bit of her happiness with me. And we would just either talk or play, either like shoot basketballs or do different ball sort of games and sporty things. Whatever we can get our hands on, we would partake in. Knowing that I enjoyed time with her, I started to teach her tricks. I taught her a trick where you can kind of bounce a ball off the crook of your elbow simply by dropping it off your hand and popping it up. I would demonstrate that for her, and she'd look at it weirdly, wondering how I'm doing this. And it's like, well, let me show you. So I taught her that. When she understood how it worked and was able to do so, she'd get a big smile on her face because, hey, she learned something new. I taught her another trick. You might be familiar with this one, where you put your elbow up in the air, so your hand is kind of behind your ear. You place something on the end of your elbow, and then you take that hand connected to the elbow and you swing it down forward. And as you do that, that object falls, but your hand grabs it before it reaches the floor or the ground. And it took her just 2 or 3 tries to get it. And again, once she got it, big smile, feeling of pride and happiness. But that's what we would do together. I would kind of goof around, talk with her, ask her how she's doing. Just various friendly things, trying to ensure her happiness. During that time, I would kind of share things about my life, what I like and what I know. I told her that I have this kind of not really a collection, but I have there was something my wife had bought me when she was in New York for a trip. It pertained to K-pop. It was a little, I'm struggling with trying to describe this thing. It's like a small notebook binder, like little notes, almost like sticky notes, but they're not sticky notes. Little tear-off notes that you can write on and put on things or put with things. Well, it was like a folding one, like a book. And it was for a particular K-pop group that was popular at the time. It was a girl group. And my wife had bought it as a joke because she knows I don't like the music, but I think some of the videos are kind of cute and well done. So she bought it for me, and it's like, oh, I know that group. They're very cute. And inside were 4 little books of notes featuring the pictures of them, and you can write on them. Some of them are little checklist notes or whatever. Well, I told Violet that I had this thing and I would bring it in. And so what I did was I wrote a note. I said, hey, have a nice day, a little happy face or whatever. And on the back of the note, I wrote, do not flip this over. So when I went to the classroom the next morning, I put it on her table where her stuff was. She was up doing something else. And she came back, and I watched her, and she saw the note and read it. And she's like looking around. And she knew where it came from. To her, only one person would do that, and that was, of course, me. So she looked at it and read it, realized the contradiction there, do not flip this over. And of course she's going to flip it over. And she did. And it said, have a nice day. And she smiled, and she liked the pictures of the singers and performers from that group because she knows the group. So she was happy with that. She kept it in her little lunch bag thingy there. And that was something else I was noticing. If she liked something, she would store it. She'd keep it in her little book thing, or put it in her cubby hole sliding shelving unit thing. And I asked her about that because she would pick up random things off the ground and keep them. I asked her, well, what do you do with all that stuff? She goes, oh, I just like it. I just keep it. My room is really messy at home. And my dad yells at me, tries to get me to clean it up, but I don't like doing that because then I don't know where things are. And as she tells me these things, I smile because that's what I was too. I didn't have OCD, but I did have well, it's possible I did. Let me rephrase that. It's possible I did because I did have a hoarding problem. I rarely had a clean room. Everything was in disorder, and in many cases filled with trash and misvalued things that should have been thrown away or moved on from. But it was hard for me to let stuff go. So I connected with her on that because I've been there before. And for me, it was born of a parental unit that I was skeptical of. And I wanted to, I don't know how to put it. I wanted to shield myself from it. So I looked back and all the times I had, a dirty room and all the trash that was building up around me and the waste on the floor and the stacks of semi-empty pop cans by the window or in the windowsill blocking my view. It was just, I had trouble getting rid of things. So when she would tell me that, I immediately connected with it. And I tried to explain to her, that's something I did too, and it took me a long time to get around that. I still struggle from time to time, but I'm not nearly as much of a hoarder as I used to be. It's mainly because I lost a lot of money in the things that were ruined in my hoard. And she claims that, she does have OCD, and judging by certain behaviors that she has, I can see where she might get that idea. But I like to know how she's doing, when she gets into adulthood with that. Because it seems to me that some of those things you can grow out of. Some of those things, if you experience the right influence in your life, if things change where you're feeling less anxious and nervous about things or worried about your life, you kind of move on because you don't have that need to create the defense mechanism in your life anymore. And by the way, I don't know where this is. This is just some weird open area, some parking lot or back area. I don't know what's going on back here, but I'm gonna head back to the trail. But as she's telling me those things, I was kind of putting together not really a game plan, but just something I can talk to her about in the future if it seems to escalate, or if I notice things being kind of negative as a result. Other things that would happen during recess is, even if I were pulled away, let's say there's like maybe an altercation between other kids, she wouldn't leave. She would kind of hang around in view, but she wouldn't get involved. Like, she knew good boundaries. She knew the distance and kind of the limits of what she would want to be involved with. That's a good sign of discernment, that there's a good calculating mind in there. Time went on. We, our working relationship improved quite a bit. Happy times all around. Then I noticed something start to adjust. The recesses were a really good litmus test of kind of her behavior as it concerned me, and really herself on recess itself, because if you think about it, a kid, they are under scrutiny the entire day, and recess is that one time when they get to just let loose and be themselves, and we kind of just hang back and let things go, within reason, of course. She would systematically come to me on recess. What used to be just an occasional thing became more of an occasion to be around me. Then it started to become predictable. When the fifth graders enter recess, fourth grade is already out there, so they have a little bit of time left. So she would go hang out with the fourth graders, and then when they had to go in, she'd come over to me. It wasn't that she didn't have friends. In fact, she was one of the more friendly kids, soft-spoken, sweet, empathetic, incredibly empathetic. Never got into trouble, not really. The worst thing she's done is just kind of given up on her work. If she didn't like the work, she wouldn't be as inclined to do it. That was probably the extent of the negativity that she carried. She definitely had friends, but for some reason she found more value in hanging around me. And she began to express that a little more. She told me a few times that I make her very happy. And I can translate that in a number of ways. But she didn't really have to say it, because she demonstrated it. To hang around me that much, that's a very special thing. And you don't do that if you don't like that person. So she clearly had high value in me. To what extent, I wasn't sure. And it didn't matter too much, because what I think we were developing was a mutual admiration. Hey, you're my buddy. You've been a positive part of my school year, and I appreciate you. And I think she would probably say the same thing. Time goes on. One of the fourth grade teachers decides, hey, let's do something for the fifth and fourth grade kids just kind of on the whim. And he decides, we're going to have a dance. It's like, okay. So he arranges this dance with a few other staff members, considers the decoration involved, gets the music ready to go, takes a survey with the kids, asking them, what sort of music do you want to hear, the whole thing. I thought it was a really good idea. Now, normally this happens at the end of the school year as a way to kind of send off the fifth graders to their new schools and everything. But he wanted to have it in the middle of the year. A little odd, but all right, sounds fun. So when word of that got around, Violet asked me, hey, you gonna go to the dance? Which was kind of a weird question because it's not for me. It's not an adult dance, it's for the kids. And I said initially, well, probably not. It's not really my thing. Besides, I have to work that night, which was true. In fact, all of that was true. I'm going to take a seat here because someone was walking around over there. This is a retirement community, by the way. Not sure if I'd want to go here myself. Looks kind of drab. You know what? It might not be retirement as much as it might be like a nursing home, hospice care, palliative care, maybe. I mean, it's quiet, kind of, nearby the highway. It's a bit loud over there, but right here it's pretty quiet. But anyways, I initially told her I wasn't going to go to the dance, and it made her sad because if you've understood anything at this point, she seems interested more in me than her classmates. So I did feel bad, but I can't do everything. I can't be everything. Time went on, and it crept closer and closer to the night of the dance, and I kept thinking about it. And I realized, this is the only season I'm going to be able to interact with her. Because come late May, that's it. It's all over. Got to move on. So I thought about things, and I said to myself, you know what? I can move some things around at work. I can rearrange appointments and things and leave early. So that's what I did. I went up to Violet and I said, hey, are you still going to the dance? She goes, yeah, probably. And I said, I'll tell you what, if you can tell me for sure that you're going to be there, I'll show up. And with that little grin, she said, okay. And that's what I did. The night came, I got to school, walked in, hearing the booms of the stereo and everything, and decoration, the welcoming glance of the principal and the teacher who arranged everything. And I'm in a button-down shirt with a tie on. My tie is I like wearing ties from time to time, and they're kind of funny ties. And this one was the periodic table of elements. And even the principal thought that was kind of cool. And I thought, well, it's appropriate for school. Maybe a bit ahead of the upperclassmen here, but nevertheless, always shoot forward. So I got to the gym, and I look in, and it's just a mass of kids, just everywhere, centered more or less in the middle of the gym. And what I noticed over there was that some of them were wearing really nice dresses. Some of them were wearing like vests and dressy sort of sophisticated clothing, treating it very seriously. And I thought that was very nice. I expected a bunch of t-shirts and same sort of garb I would expect in the normal classroom setting, but I was impressed with, how seriously they were treating this. And I think a lot of thanks go to the parents, of course. But just the idea that they'd be willing to do that, I thought was really special. But then I looked slightly to the left at one of the tables, and there she was, Violet, sitting there, dress pants, dress shoes, white button-down shirt, tie, jacket, glasses. As I mentioned, she's a bit of a stylistic experiment, walking experiment of trying different things. And I had known that she kind of liked wearing masculine things from time to time. And she's trying to figure out who she is. Who is Violet in Violet's mind? But she was dressed to the nines. Looked very sophisticated, very, very nice. She didn't notice me walk in, so I kept walking closer and closer, and eventually she looked over, and the look on her face went from this dull stare at the mass of kids having fun to just pure joy. She gets up, runs over, gives me a hug, first one, and thanks me for being there. And I said, you know what, I was looking forward to this. Glad you're here. And I told her that she looked wonderful. Thought that was very nice of me to say, and kind of stood there for a second, then sat down together and kind of looked at the crowd. And this was the first moment, keep in mind this is months after we had met, where I felt awkward, where something was just a little off. And it didn't dawn on me in the moment, but what I was feeling was this emotion, this feeling of sort of precious togetherness. Because you have the music going, you have the activity around you, and it's the two of you just sitting there by yourselves, with everything going on, but there's this little bubble, this quiet, comfortable, simple bubble where we were just kind of there for each other and enjoying the moment. And it was awkward. And it's because I realized I liked this kid quite a bit. And I didn't want to say the wrong things, or I didn't want to force her to dance with the other kids or tell her to go have fun. Or I just went silent. And I didn't know what she wanted. I really didn't. So I just kind of sat there for a while. And then she gets up. She says, I'm going to go walk around for a bit. It's like, all right, have fun. So she walks off. Now here I am at a 5th grade kids dance, knowing full well I don't dance at all, not sure what to do with myself. I decided, you know what, I'm going to get up too. I'm going to wander around. I let her be. Didn't follow her around. I don't do that. So I wandered the gym, saw the other kids, and said hi to them, and they were surprised to see me. And of course, like I said, dressed very well, really cool. I went out in the hallway, saw the food that they were serving. It was a lot of pizza, big pizza party, more or less. There was a room where they could go in and get their pictures taken with each other or by themselves. Again, a lot of fun. I'm never a fan of the music that's played at these dances because it's a bit too trendy and TikTok-y, if you know what I mean. But I enjoyed that the kids liked it. It was for them. It wasn't for me. And from time to time, I would glance over at Violet to see how she was doing. Sometimes she'd talk with other kids standing there, or sometimes she'd just kind of stand on her own and view things from a distance. It's very similar to what I would have done if I were in her position. Not a wallflower, curious, but not so outgoing that I'm getting involved with every little group that's there. Eventually, I wandered over to the center of the gym where they were starting up limbo. One of the teachers I work with, who's really, really good guy, he asked me if I could hold one end of the stick, and I did. So he and I held this stick, and we would lower it as the kids would go through and make their rounds, and cycle through. It became a competition. If you make it through, you go to the end of the line and try again. We'll keep dropping it down and see who fails. And if you fail, you're out. If you make it through, get to the back of the line and keep going until there's one left. Well, as we're doing this, I looked over at Violet. She's standing, like 30 feet away. And we make eye contact. Now I like wave her over. I said, come on over. She gives me that sort of blank stare and shaking of the head. And I just smiled. Because I never force her to do anything that she didn't want to do. So we finished that up and it was fun. And about this time, I'm thinking, I need a good exit strategy here because I don't want to be here as everyone's leaving. As much as I have grown to enjoy the experience for what it was worth, I'm also a strategic thinker. How am I going to get out of this without hassle? So I decided to just go ahead and go before all the kids were getting picked up. And I went over to her and I said, hey, I'm gonna get going, but have a good rest of your night. I'll see you tomorrow. Because it wasn't a Friday. It was a Thursday. It's like, okay. Didn't like hearing I was going to leave, but, I got to do what I got to do too. So that's what I did. And it was just, I discovered how much I liked her. And it got me thinking about my, personal life away from school. Is this what happiness really is? Does this situation translate to me in the way I think it is? Because my wife and I, she's a wonderful person. I definitely got lucky when I met her. 22 years of marriage. 23 here in September. We decided from the get-go we would not have kids. For her, it was a conscious decision based upon her upbringing and what she wanted her life to be. Ultimately independent. Me, I was neutral about children, but I was positive I didn't want the responsibility. So she and I kind of met in a mutual sort of decision where we'll get married, but we're not going to have kids, which means we're going to have all this money. But we don't. We don't have all that much money. In fact, I've grown to be so non-materialistic in my life that you could give me $1 million right now, and that'd be great for me to pay off bills, but I'm not going to splurge. It's not really who I am. But for her it is. She likes stuff. She likes traveling and acquiring things that she enjoys. And it's, more power to her. She earns every dollar she makes. But I've discovered here lately that I haven't really been happy. And I think it goes back to when I left the factory. Started working with kids because that's who I am. I actually am a fatherly sort of person. I like to protect and defend children. I like that interaction. You put me in a room or a party. Let's put it this way. Let's say there's a party. Maybe someone's birthday party, a family party of some sort. All the adults corral themselves over in this direction. The kids are running around. I enter the room. I'm going to probably avoid the adults and go right to the kids and get involved. Whatever they're playing, I'll get involved. If they're playing video games on the TV, I'll get over there and say, hey, I played this before. Really? You have? Oh, absolutely. Or if they're playing Lego or some other building thing, I'll get down there too. I'll get on the floor. I get involved. That's my comfort level. And it took me a long time to realize what that translated to, which is why when I have these moments with Violet, not only do I appreciate her, but she's helping me understand who I am. At the deepest core, at my deepest integrity, I think I'm a fatherly sort of person. And I should have had kids. all those time people asked me, hey, do you have kids? Why not? And I gave some snarky answer to get them to be quiet. They were onto something. They knew something, and I ignored it. I let it go. But my time with Violet was bringing up something I had pushed aside. This genuine feeling of wanting to take care of somebody. Because my fountain, if you think about, the amount of love you have in your life, how much you're giving away to those you care about, and you view it as a fountain. Well, mine's been overflowing. A lot of love to give, nowhere to give it. I tried charity work. We have the United Way of our area put on something called Real Men Read. Before I started working in schools, I started to donate my time to them. They put me in a particular classroom, and I would read to second graders from a book. And every month I would visit and I would read more of the book. Kind of wish it was more often, but that's what they could afford. I get to know the kids. They know me. And by the time I'm done, I've got all these letters of thanks from these kids saying, hey, thanks for coming to read for us. I worked in Study Connection. One of the districts here in town at the time, I decided I was going to be a mentor, a tutor for one particular kid in their district. Used to meet her downtown. What you working on? What are you having trouble with? How can I help you? Same thing. Get to know each other. By the end, she's got a picture for me of her and her group, and she signed it and said thanks. That stuff sits with me. It confirms that when I left the factory, I did the right thing and going to a school and working with kids. Because I was getting to take that wasted, love, affection, care, however you want to call it, and devote it to those in need. It just so happened that this particular past school season, there was one kid, above all, who could translate what I was doing, who understood what I was doing, and connected with it well, and that was Violet. The zoo, the Philharmonic, the dance, recesses, it just meant something. And it continues. Recesses became a little more personal, where it didn't matter what was going on. When she left lunch to go to recess, and I'm already out there, she goes right to me. Doesn't even bother with the other kids. There were times when they would come up and want to play with her, and she'd go off with them, and that's fine. But given the choice, it's at my side where she wanted to be. She would tell me more things about her life, things I didn't know. I was growing into a very important role in her life. So much so that I had happened to ask her a small talk question. I said, hey, did you do anything fun this weekend? She goes, yeah. Wasn't fun, but my grandmother had a heart attack. And I looked at her with, gaping mouth and wide eyes and said, are you serious? She goes, yeah. In the middle of the night, she had a pretty serious heart attack, and we all went to the hospital in the middle of the night, and she's going to be okay, but she's going to be on a lot of medication, and kind of worried about her. I gave my condolences, and I learned that her grandmother is a key figure in her life. This van coming. I'm going to pull over here for a second. And during the talk, she realizes that I am someone she can talk to, someone that's not going to judge her on anything. She starts talking about her parents, so I'm learning more about them. Her dad, I've always viewed him, with what she's told me up to this point, as being a good guy, willing to do things with her, take her places, or experience things. But she happened to tell me once that she explained to him her dream of becoming a K-pop star, because she wants to be a singer, a pop star, and everything. And he tells her that she couldn't because she's not Korean, which is actually incorrect. You don't have to be Korean to be in K-pop, because K-pop does denote the kind of culture of origin, but the music itself is not entirely Korean. There are plenty of Americans and non-Korean people who have been in that genre to varying levels of success. And she was sad to tell me that her dad told her no, and I said, and here's where I have to be careful, because I don't necessarily want to go against a parent's wishes, but we're talking just opinion here that happened to be incorrect, misinformation. And I said, you know what? If you've determined for yourself that this is your dream, go for it. And even if it doesn't translate as being into K-pop, if you want to be a performer, pop star, again, follow that dream. Do what you can do for yourself. And she understood. And she and I agreed that, you don't have to be Korean to be a K-pop star. And then in time, she would tell me about her parents, just their relationship. And she told me that, they fight rather often. And in my mind, I'm going, yeah, I've been there too, kid. That's the story of my parents. And then she told me something that nearly made me cry. She told me that her dad sometimes leaves marks on her arm. Not Violet's arm, but her mom's arm. And now I'm painting this picture in my mind. I'm thinking, well, what's going on here? And I asked her, well, if you're okay sharing, what do you mean by that? She said, well, they have fights and it gets physical. And he grabs her by the arm and it leaves little bruises. And they talk about, maybe separating. And I'm processing this as she's telling me it. Again, because I feel so strongly about her. I like her so much that, hearing these things hurts. It really does. And by the way, I'm at the end of my walk here, and I'm at about an hour, but I want to continue this because there's a little more to share. So I'm going to go into a familiar area here where it's a little more isolated. So she tells me these things, and she's looking down, which is a sign of hurt and concern and sadness. And I asked her, well, what do you do? How do you deal with these things? What's your response? And she goes, well, I cry and I tell them to stop. And sometimes I just run away and hide. I'm like, you know what? I did the same thing. My parents would fight in the middle of the night when they thought I was asleep, but because they were so loud and rather idiotic with it, they would wake me up. And I have an entire story I can tell about my mom and her life and her issues and how that affected me. About how now I have sleeping trouble because of what I had to deal with at night. It's just been kind of etched in my mind, in my psyche, as a lingering effect of my parental issues that I was dealing with. And while she's telling me, I can feel the tears welling up in my eyes. And it would have been real easy at that moment to break down. But I kept it together. And then she told me, there are times when I thought about running away. And I told her right then and there, I didn't even pause. I said, don't do that. Whatever you do, don't do that. And while I realized there may be a time to physically go away when things get bad, I translated what she was saying as, look, I don't have an answer for this. This hurts me. I don't know what to do. The best I can do is walk away or run or vanish. Because I've tried the same thing. I was in that position too, where things got so bad that I didn't even want to be around my mother anymore. I had packed my bags and I was planning on leaving. And this is when I was a young teen at that point. She just wasn't getting any better, and I wasn't getting any assistance from anybody else, including my father. I was just going to leave. I put my bag by the front door, hoping that either one of them would ask me, what's her bag doing there? Then I could tell them blankly, you know what, I'm just going to leave. If you two can't get it together, I'm not going to be a witness to this anymore. I'm just going to go. And I planned on leaving. I was going to take my bike, ride all the way across Fort Wayne to my grandparents' house, unannounced. Just show up and say, you know what? I'm not going back home. Those two have lost the privilege of having me around. So I'm going through these machinations in my mind of my history as she's telling me these things. And I tell her, look, don't do that. I think I know what you're feeling, but please trust me on this. Don't just leave. You could be making things worse for yourself. And I think she understood. Time went on. At this point, I developed a very strong feeling towards her. The feeling of wanting to just, wrap her up in armor and protect her from everything. Because she deserved it. She deserved someone to save her, though at the same time I had trust in her and confidence that she could make good decisions on her own, because she had shown herself as being someone who can make good decisions. She'll struggle, but could make good decisions for herself. Time continued. I'm starting to notice the end of the year is coming up. I mean, it's a few months away at this point. And, time has always been time is a resource that you don't get back. You always lose it. You never really earn it. It's just displaced from elsewhere. The best you can do is mitigate the loss. In other words, what are you doing to make this time as good as you can make it? And I started thinking about the end of the year and what I could do to make what is going to be a difficult goodbye a little more special. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to see if I can include myself in the talent show. Because that's something else that we do. At the end of the year, fifth graders have a day where they all go to the gym, teachers, staff, whatever, and they show off their talents. It could be dancing, it could be singing, it could be computer art, it could be physical art, acting, comedy. Last season I had a one-on-one student, and because his quirk was that he didn't know how to gain positive attention. He could get negative attention, being a class clown, riling up other kids, that sort of thing. And it's something I talked with him about all season long during that very chaotic school season. Well, I thought it would be a good idea to put him in kind of a comedy skit. He chose a friend of his, really nice kid, and they did the Who's on First routine, as made famous and immortalized by the old Abbott and Costello duo. Funny. It's still funny. I've seen that routine hundreds and hundreds of times, and it's always funny to me. And he and his friend worked hard at getting the dialogue and the cadence and the timing and the emotion of the parts they were playing, and they performed it, and it was easily the best thing that happened in that gym that day. And he got so many claps, applause, cheers. He was beaming. And that's it. That's how you do it, kid. That's positive attention. You did it. And that was the end of his year. For Violet, however, it's not comedy. It's confidence. Confidence and throwing away those feelings of helplessness. So I wanted to come up with a skit for her, but more of a dramatic one where I would be involved myself. I won't get too deeply into it, but it involves, a dramatic piece, a few props here and there, and me singing. Yeah. I was going to have her perform something to a song that I was going to sing. And I ran it by her. She was actually pretty interested, but then she told me, well, I have social anxiety. I don't know if I want to be on the stage. It's like, okay, perfectly fine. So I adjusted it, and through, a series of adjustments and, a couple weeks here and there of rethinking things, I came up with a different idea. It was a pretty good idea. Not as good as my original, but essentially, I had this idea built from something that she had been kind of sharing with me throughout the school season. Since she loves K-pop, and she's fond of the group BTS, which has 7 members, I wanted her final little talent show thing, which was no longer a talent show thing as much as it was just a little classroom event, to involve that. Well, throughout the year, she would get these books from the library, specifically about K-pop, a few of them about very specific groups, but they would invariably have pictures of BTS in there, and she would call me over and say, "Hey, Mr. Bryan, look at this book, it's awesome. And this is Jimin, this is J-Hope, this is RM, this is V," going down the line. And every time she would do this, to kind of show off what she knows, she would miss a couple names. Like, it would just vanish from her mind. And because I knew these guys, I would say, well, wait a minute, that one is Jungkook. Oh yeah, that's right, that's it. And that became a recurring thing. She would get these books, call me over, try to name them, couldn't do it. So the final little challenge for her was to see if she could finally name all these members in one go. I explained to her how it would work. I would bring in pictures of the guys, show them to her one by one. She'd have to get them right. The idea of getting all 7. The twist was I would be bringing in these really odd tasting sodas. One for every name, one for every member. So if she gets it, right, or excuse me, if she gets it wrong, like if she doesn't know the name or gets the name wrong, she would have to take a sip from one of these drinks. Now they're all hidden. You get to see the colors of them, but you don't exactly know what the flavor is. So there were 7 bottles. First name comes up, she gets it wrong. Okay, I choose someone in the classroom to choose which bottle to give her. I reveal what it is. Oh no, it's a terrible flavor, and she takes a sip of it, and hilarity ensues. If she gets it right, I would have to take the taste, and she would choose someone in the group or in the classroom to choose for me, and I would have to take a taste, and it'd be gross, and I'd play it up like it's just the worst thing in the world. Kids would laugh because Mr. Bryan is doing something really kind of gross. Well, I had worked with her several times, just practicing. Okay, who are the names? Don't forget, there's 4 names that start with J. There are two that are initials, R, M, and V. And there's that oddball one, Suga, who doesn't really fit a category. The 4 J's, the 2 initials, and Suga. Because I told her, look, I want you to get these right. I want to be the fall guy here. I want to be the one who has to taste all these terrible drinks so you don't have to. And we planned this out, and because we weren't going to tie it to the talent show, I talked to one of the teachers who was very supportive of, seeing 2 of us as being a very good pair. And I said, look, can I have time in the classroom to do this? And he goes, oh yeah, absolutely. And we started planning that out. Well, long story short, it never happened. It never happened at all. And I kept asking for about 3 weeks to finish out the year for that time, and it just wasn't made for us. It just never happened. And it ticked me off. It really did. Because I had bought all those drinks and had all the stuff prepared for it. The whole thing was ready to go. In fact, those drinks were in the break room refrigerator for that amount of time, for those 3 weeks with my name on it. Fully intended to be done, but it never happened. It ticked me off. I wanted to do something special for her to finish out her year. And as time kind of wound down, I'm getting kind of sad, because that's it. You spend all this time getting to know someone, you enjoy their presence, you form a good working relationship, you become, more or less friends. I viewed her as a friend. I know I'm not supposed to. I'm there to work, not to socialize, but hey, some kids need certain things. Sometimes you represent something that's very special to these kids, and if you can unlock that for them, you've created a heck of a relationship. And imagine if you had that with every other kid. I had some good relationships in that room. I have wonderful stories of, convincing one of the 5th grade kids that, she doesn't have to be afraid of speaking in front of the class, and here's why. Just giving them one little nugget of hope, of confidence to wipe away the helplessness feelings. That goes a long way. You earn a longtime ally and supporter when you can do those things. And I started feeling down because time is running out, and I want to maximize my time with her within reason, without getting in her way. And I just kept up what I was doing. I would stand there in recess, she'd come by, and we'd play. We'd, have fun, talk about stuff. And the only thing I ever heard from her, verbally, was that I made her happy. She told me twice. The best thing about the year was, spending time with me. And then something incredible happened. Teacher Appreciation Day came up. Now, I've said for the longest time to these kids, I'm not a teacher. I can teach you things. I'm not a teacher. Not anymore. I gave that up. I got to school and I happened to notice, once the bell rang and the kids were moving around, that some of them were carrying these little notebooks, little brown notebooks. I wasn't sure what they were about. I started my day in kindergarten, as I always do. And I'm sitting there with my small group, going through, reading skills, word creation, handwriting, all those good things. And who do I see show up? Well, there's Violet and one of her friends. They walk into the room, and her friend walks over to the teacher, who is at a back table with her small group, and hands her one of those notebooks. It's like, oh. Well, Violet comes over to me, and she hands me this book as I'm sitting there. On the book front it said, "Thank you for all that you do," in that sort of live, laugh, love font. you'll see on like signs and stuff at garage sales and flea markets and stuff. She tells me, open it up. So I did. The very first page was a paragraph written by Violet. The very first line, Dear Bryan, not Mr. Bryan, you are the best person in the world. That was the very first sentence. Now, I'm most certainly not the best person in the world, but I was touched, and I read further. Essentially, she thanked me for a wonderful year, and she hoped that I thought it was really good too. She hoped that she made me happy. If only she knew. She had no clue that she was changing my life. She had gotten me to understand something that was buried very deep. I was pushing aside because of, life's needs, current life, what I have going on in mine, my married life, personal needs and desires that I've quelled and hidden and placed in the shadows. And she was shining lights on them all year long. I carried that book with me for a good week and a half. I noticed the other teachers, the other staff members who received them, they would kind of toss them aside, put them under stacks of papers on their desks. Just like it meant basically nothing at the end of the day. Because they've been going through this for years. Teachers have been doing this for a long time. They get stuff all the time, pictures. And I know this. I've got a big box at home filled with pictures and notes and letters and toys and Valentine's Day cards from students I've worked with, 12 years ago. It all means something to me. In mass, it may be something very general. I get it. But what I need to remember is that it took an individual to give me those individual things. It's not the group that matters here, it's the individual. That means something to me. I keep it. There was a time in my office where I had on one full wall just random pictures. Everything from kindergarten drawings to really elaborate 5th grade drawings, like wolf heads. I remember a student years ago asked me, "What's your favorite animal, Mr. Bryan?" And I said, "Well, the gray wolf," at the time. I was like, "Okay." So he took his pencil and he drew a gray wolf. Beautiful. I wrote his name on it and I kept it. Stuck it on the wall. It meant something to me. That book that was given to me meant something to me. The first writing in there came from Violet. But as I leaf through, all these other kids have written something too. Some of it very eloquent. Some of it, very typical for what a kindergarten would write. It just really meant a lot to me. When I talked to Violet about that and I thanked her, she said specifically she wanted to make sure she was the very first. The first name that would pop up. The first person to write in that book. And I never figured out how they got the kids to do that. I had no idea that was going to happen. Somewhere along the way, that book was sitting there in a group. And the kids were invited to go up there and write in it. She must have made a beeline for mine. That had to have been the case. Time goes forward, as it always does. I'm thinking about the end of school. Recesses are becoming a little less frequent because of all the things going on. Violet missed 3 days straight of school because of another problem with her grandmother. She was quick to tell me when she returned, which was her way of saying, I missed you too. And by the way, I don't think anyone else knows these things. I don't think she told any other adult. I don't believe for a second she did. I think I was given very privileged information. I never shared it with anybody. Even the tough stuff about the parental issues, the interpersonal problems between mom and dad, I never shared it with anybody. I treated what she told me as privileged. Look, you earned this, Mr. Bryan. Talent show came and left. She sang. So I guess she wasn't as socially awkward as before. Final day of school. There's a ceremony. So the 5th graders got in the gym and parents and guardians were there. It was a big shindig. They had some guest speakers. Teachers got up and gave awards for classroom achievement. Specials rooms, teachers came up and talked about things. And I'm standing there in the periphery. And these days are always tough for me. I'm already overwhelmed emotionally. Tears in my eyes. And watching these wonderful kids receive their awards and realizing that, hey, this is it. Some of them have spent 7 years at that school, and now they have to move on to a bigger school, new teachers, bigger peers, more responsibilities, watching the clock, things that I spoke with them about many times leading up to these days. And I'm standing there and clapping for them and just perpetually on the verge of tears. It's right there. I'm trying not to dab because I don't want to get any sort of attention for that. And then the art teacher gets up. She has one special award that she's going to give to a student who just really did well in her classroom. She didn't come around and say who it was. She instead gave attributes. So, this student was, always a quiet, studious worker, kept to herself, her, so I knew it was a female. Always did her best, and what I saw from her this year was her kind of breaking out of her shell. And being more outgoing, more outwardly happy. And I knew who she was talking about. And sure enough, she says the name. It's Violet. I clap loudly. I wanted to scream, yes, you did it. It's all you. I'm proud of you. I kept to just clapping. Picks up her certificate, wanders back to his seat. And I'm thinking, you know what? might be arrogant to think this, but I like to think that somewhere along the way, my time with her was a case of, tender loving care, helping her figure out who she is, figuring out that she doesn't have to be in a bubble, doesn't have to hoard everything, doesn't have to hide herself, and she can be herself. There's something I've skipped over. Spring break. And this ties into spring break. I want to bypass that to get to the end here, and now it's time for me to go back. And this is something that I experienced, I've never experienced before, and I don't think I ever will again. But when April arrived, I was feeling very good about the class. Clearly, I had adored Violet. And I noticed the other but the other staff members, teachers, principal, office people, leadership, doing this thing that they do every time there's a vacation coming up. Count down the days. Oh, Monday, last week, for spring break. Tuesday, day 2, almost there. Wednesday, it's hump day, halfway to spring break. Thursday, after day, there's only one more day. Friday's here. Happy Friday, everybody. Last day before spring break. Aren't you happy? No, I'm not. Unlike you, I enjoy working here. I love these kids. I didn't want to go. I didn't want vacation. I want to stay here. Work with them. To see them, talk with them, play with them. Learn more about them. Help them out. But of course, it is vacation. Kids are going to be gone. Doing whatever they do. Going back to a home life that maybe they don't want to be a part of. So I told the principal this, look, unlike my peers here, I'm not interested in going on spring break. If there's anything I can do in the school during that time, let me know. I'd be glad to help. And she thought that was a noble thing. Very sweet. So what she did was, she said, well, I'll tell the teachers what you have offered. Maybe they'll have something for you to do. It's like, awesome, great. And that's what she did. She went into a meeting, and she made it known that, hey, Mr. Bryan would like to come in and help out in the classroom if you can. So if there's anything you need done, clean up, moving tables, fixing desks. I've done that all season. Please let him know. You know how many teachers got in contact with me? 0. None of them. Fine. It's their vacation too. But I was sad. I didn't want that time away. I certainly didn't want that time away from Violet. She was becoming part of my daily routine, and I knew I was going to miss her, just as I would those other kids. So what I did was this. In that particular group, at the time, I think there were 14 kids. Rather small group, but with their needs, it felt like a bigger group. I wrote every single one of those kids a personal letter from me, handwritten on notebook paper that they would use too, making it as genuine as I possibly could, explaining to them how I felt about them as individuals. Every letter tailor-made to the individual. Not this mass crap you make on a computer and send out to everybody. No empty gestures or platitudes, heartfelt words. Hey, you mean something to me. I've enjoyed working with you. And for some of them, I got into specifics, things that they've done that I've been proud for. Some of them I give advice to. We're not talking just a regular group of kids. These are ones that I worked with that I saw something special in. And it would have been really easy for me to come back to school on that following Monday, bring in a bag of Jolly Ranchers, toss them around, and say, hey, I missed you, here you go. That candy is consumed, the wrappers are thrown away, that's it. Never to be remembered again. By writing a letter with a date in my handwriting. That is something they can keep a very long time. Some of those kids read their letters right away and thanked me. Some of them didn't even open them. Some of them never even got the letter because, well, they threw it away. And I told them when I gave them out, these are your options. In Violet's letter, which, by the way, was 5 times longer than everyone else's, I went through and I recounted everything we did that season. The zoo, the Philharmonic, the dance, recesses. I wanted her to remember these things. Because if I'm being honest here, she's not going to experience this again from anybody else. She doesn't demand that much attention, even though I know she wants it. She's going to slide through school as she had been. She's going to do her best, but she's going to get lost in the group. There's not going to be another me. And I told her to finish up her letter. No matter where you are or what you do, always be you. Always be you. All caps, underlined, big period at the end. And I signed it, your buddy, Mr. Bryan. So that ceremony, when the art teacher said those things, she came out of her shell, more outgoing, a little more happy. Yeah, that's the way it seems. But maybe she was just willing to be herself. Maybe she had learned that there are people who care about her, who don't share her family name. There are people out there in the world who do care about her. And I'm one of them. And I still do. I'm several weeks removed from the last day of school at this point. I still miss her. I really do. The end of our school year was rather special. After that ceremony, I'm still overwhelmed. I'm still trying to fight back tears because it's always a big day. It's understated by my peers, but for me, it's a big deal. Parents and the guardians and the kids are intermingling and they're getting their snacks. There's cookies and drinks available in the gym, and some of the kids were allowed to leave if they wanted to. All the parents had to do was sign them out, and that's it. You're done. You were gone from this school forever. I went out in the hallway to gather myself. And who runs out there? Violet. Behind her was her mom. She comes over and introduces me to her mom, and she says to Mom, "This is who I've been talking about." Clearly, she's been sharing what we've been doing with home. And Mom's happy to meet me, and I shake her hand, and I apologize because I'm overwhelmed. I'm at a loss for words because I'm on the verge of tears. And I try to explain that, Her daughter was clearly the biggest part of what made this year an incredible experience for me, the best year ever. And she's the most wonderful kid I've ever met in my life. Her mom says that Violet wanted a picture. So I stand there and I muster a smile for the camera, even though I can't stand getting my pictures taken. But for this one, for this kid, without a doubt, I'm going to do it. And I asked Violet if she's going to stay, not go home. She goes, yep. I didn't see her much for the rest of the day. Never got to do my little event with her. Ended up having to do that with my fellow classified workers. It's like an hour left in the day, and it's clearly I'm not going to be able to do this with Violet in the classroom. All right, let's break these open, folks. They were awful. Those drinks were terrible. Ranch dressing, enchilada sauce, peanut butter and jelly, sour apple, toxic sour apple. There's one called Kitty Piddle, supposed to emulate cat pee. That wasn't too bad. It was pineapple. Yeah, but the ranch was awful. I probably chose poorly with that one. But yeah, my time with her, it got me to reimagine my life and what I have remaining in it. It's too late to have my own kids. It's not too late to foster or adopt. I looked it up. My time with her encouraged me to look up the process. Different organizations out there that have kids who are available, who are looking for someone like myself. Someone who's dedicated, who's willing to give a home and a lot of affection to. Another problem is my wife. She's not very fond of that idea, which puts me in another entirely different mindset. What matters to me? What truly makes me happy in my life? Marriage does. But after 22 years, things begin to dry up a bit, get a little sour, boring, tedious, typical, primed for a rut. And that's what we're in. We're in a rut. And my wife does not understand where we went wrong. Material is not going to fix that. I have some big decisions to make in my future. I'm not prepared to make them now, but there's going to be a day when I'm going to have to make a decision. Either I continue what I've been doing and always eluding that happiness that I've discovered I need, or I turn my life over again, hit the reset button, and finally do something good. I'm at an hour and 40 minutes in this video. It's about time for me to get going. Got to go to work later. Thank you very much for sticking with this. It's hard for me to talk about this for obvious reasons. Made it a little tougher when there are dump trucks driving by, but I really appreciate you hanging out with me. If you have not watched the other videos, I encourage you to do so. It's more than just me recounting history. There's other stuff going on that I'd love to hear your opinions on too. Have a good remainder of your day. Take care. Bye.